Check 1, 2.
Go! Curious about real estate? Yes! Then you've come to the right place. Get the knowledge you need. Get over the fear and get started. This is the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show with your host, Michael Quarles.
Hello, everybody. Michael Quarles with podcast 48. Man, we're too shy of 50. 50 is going to be a fun day. Today, we're going to have the 5 questions asked by real estate investors. And remember, if you want your question asked and answered, send it to support@bsffacademy.com. One more time, support@bsffacademy.com. Here we go. Question number 1. What's the difference between as-is value and ARV? So ARV is after repair value. As-is is before you repair it. Now, of course, that's a simple explanation of what the words are. The reality is, and I hate saying this, but I preach it over and over and over again. A lot of the homes that we look at are actually as-is value. When we compare them to our comparable sales and active listings. So, as an example, if my subject property is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, Formica countertop, never have upgraded the house, it's the existing roof, it's the existing heating mechanical units, it's the existing everything else. Maybe the carpet's been replaced once in the last 25 years kind of thing. But all in all, it's the house it was when it was built. If I'm comparing that house to my subject properties for comparable sales and active listings, if all of my comparables are the same house, then I'm buying an as-is house. So the values that have been placed on my comparables and my subject property are equal because the comparables are the same house. So they have the same Formica, they have the same, nothing's been updated kind of stuff, same roof, same mechanical, those kinds of things. If I find one that has, or two, or a majority that has been modernized, where maybe the roofing has been re-roofed, new mechanical, new paint, maybe the interior has been changed, countertops, cabinets, those kinds of things, then I know my subject is as is, and I need to bring it to, and I need to calculate the cost of the ARV. But maybe my subject property is the ARV, and all of my comparables are in the as-is condition. So it's real important when we look at a house not to just look at the black and the white piece of paper, so the black ink white page, and go, okay, well, this house is this many square feet and it sold for this and it must be the same. You can't really do it that way. You actually have to do a little bit more research where you're actually going over, knocking on doors, maybe calling some agents, figuring out what concessions, what that house that sold or is going to be sold, what it has and what it has compares to your subject property. Much like an appraiser would do. If you've ever worked with an appraisal or appraiser, they're going to call and find out all kinds of things to determine the offsets or the adds from the subject property and the comparable sales. So it's real important that when we look at as-is value and ARV value, that we determine what our subject property is. Is it as-is or is it ARV? And it could be either one of those as it compares to the comparable sales and the active listings and active for sales. But great question. And we're going to get into, I'm kind of saving it and not giving any hints, but maybe podcast 50 is going to be that podcast where we're really going to have a long conversation about, I'm not saying it's going to be podcast 50, but man, it may be a good day. But we're going to get into some in-depth comparisons of as-is value and ARV value. And I'm actually going to invite a good friend of mine to be on the call with me. And we're going to just hash it out. Maybe take us an hour. I know it's going to be a long one, but we're going to have some fun. Question number 2. If seller haven't been able to sell their home on the MLS in the past, how will an investor be able to sell it quickly when we list it at as-is value? Is this well below what they would have been asking in the past? I'm going to reword the question a little bit. House was on the MLS, didn't sell. We're going to go and buy a house. We're going to put it on the MLS. What's going to cause it to sell for us? And guys and gals, there's only one thing that causes anything to sell. And that's the price you offer it at to the market. So if it was sitting on the MLS before at a value, then I know for a fact it's not worth that value. So when I negotiate with the seller, one of the statements I'm going to make is you are going to lower the price this time to cause your house to sell, correct? And they're going to say yes because they want it to sell. Then I'm going to subtract all my costs and my percentages so that I can arrive at a number that causes me to say, yes, I'll buy it, and then stick it back on the MLS at a highly reduced value because I know I have to reduce it. Because even if something sits on the market and it's overpriced, they should at least still get a moderate amount of offers that were realistic, but they should still have gotten one or two lower offers, not lowball like that one comment a couple days ago, but lower offers. That if they didn't do that, then I know they were highly overpriced. And there's everything will sell. I don't care what it is. It could be the trashiest house. It could be the ugliest house. It could be the smelliest house. It could be any and everything. It will absolutely sell if it's priced correctly. There's somebody out there that wants to make a deal, turn it around, flip it, make it into a mansion, make it into something that's reasonable, whatever they want to do to it. But if it's priced right, it's going to sell. So it's all about price. So, and don't look at what a realtor, as good as they are, and there are a lot of really great realtors, don't look at what they've listed the houses for as any indication of value. What some of these realtors do is they're trying to get as much as they can get because they get 6%. So, more they get, the more the house they sell for, the more they get. So understand that. And then some of them, bless their soul, they're so new that they haven't yet figured out how to put valuation on houses. And so they're not doing a lot of due diligence, and then they're over-listing. So they're overvaluing the property, and some of those houses are just going to sit. And it's a shame, but it is what it is. And just know that the values that are on the MLS, it's not 100%. It doesn't mean exactly that the houses are worth that value. Question number 3. When calling sellers back and cold calling, how many phone calls per day should an investor be making? Well, calling sellers back and cold calling are two different things. You should be tracking all your calls that you come in, and in 15 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, if you haven't made an offer, you should be calling them back. If you've made them an offer, say it's a verbal offer and a written offer, then you go 3, 5, 7, and 10. And if you haven't bought it, then you're still going 15, 30, 60, and 90. So day 3, day 5, day 7, and day 10, you're going to call the seller back who you made the offer to and question whether or not they're ready to accept the offer. It's a real easy, polite conversation. And when they say no, that's fine. You say, I'm going to follow up with you. Have a wonderful day. Then at the end of that 10-day period, if you haven't, in fact, bought the house, or if they haven't told you to go, whatever, then you're going to call them back at 15, 30, 60, and 90. And you're going to follow up again. So that's different than cold calling. And you should prioritize at least that. So that has to be a priority. Now, cold calling, I would take a block of 2 hours and, Monday through Friday, if I was going to be cold calling, if I wasn't doing enough marketing to get the phone to ring off the hook and blow up my phone, then I want to get the phone going out the other direction. So I'm going to go ahead and sit on the phone for 2 hours and say, hi, my name's Michael Quarles with I Buy Houses. I'm looking for 3 and 4 bedroom homes in your neighborhood. And I was wondering, who do you know that's planning on moving? No, thank you. Now there's another part of the script I could go to, or I can just say, thank you for thinking about that, and go to the next call. And that I want to prioritize if, again, I'm not doing enough marketing that causes my phone to ring. So I'm going to start ringing other phones, the outbound phones. Now, in the advent of and the day of cell phones, where we don't have a lot of landline phone numbers, how do you retrieve those kinds of things? There's a couple little tricks you can use. Now, I talk a lot about you could go to an area and it's whatever prefix for that area. You could go, like if it's 872, you go 872-0000, 872-0001, 0002. The problem with that is a lot of those lines are going to be dead because, let's face it, there's not as many home phones anymore as there is cell phones. So here's a little trick. In most cities, you have like little car ads, people selling their car. garage sale ads where they're listing a phone number and possibly an address, and the car ad's absolutely a phone number. Well, pick one of those up. Pick a penny saver up, a thrifty nickel, where people have put an ad in the paper who want to sell something. It's not a house, but they probably have a house, and we're just cold calling kind of thing. So pick one of those up and just start calling through that. We know those are active, live, good phone numbers, and then we'll be able to say, who do you know? And just go from there. Cold calling is cold calling.
Thanks for listening to Buy, Sell, Fix, Flip. We'll be right back. Are you running out of leads? It's time you tried Yellow Letters at yellowletters.com. Get motivated seller leads through yellow letters, postcards, zip letters, typed professional letters, greeting cards, door hangers, and business cards. Yellow Letters is a full-service marketing company created with your success in mind. Get the personal attention you need to get your direct mail campaign started and get in touch at yellowletters.com.
And we are back in 3, 2, 1.
Question number 4, it's a scenario question. Mr. Smith knows an investor who wants to retire. Some of her properties include apartment buildings. Is there a way to negotiate a seller finance solution or situation with her that allows Mr. Smith to build his credit for future conventional financing? So, investor 1, Mr. Smith, knows an investor who wants to retire. Some of the properties include apartment buildings. Is there a way to negotiate a seller finance situation with her that allows the investor to rebuild his credit for future conventional financing? Absolutely. All you have to do once you negotiate it is confirm and make sure that the original investor, the one that's financing now, the lender, is actually reporting on the credit bureau. And that's a pretty simple thing to do. You can go to the local credit bureau and just have them call the company, call the person. Hey, is so-and-so pay on time? Yep, he does. Great. Now you have that showing up on your credit report. It's a great way to do it. It's a perfect way to do it. But absolutely you can get it done. It's a little bit of work. It's not as easy because it's not an automated reporting system, but absolutely. And you should, by the way, if you're trying to rebuild your credit, that's an absolutely easy way to rebuild. So, perfect way to rebuild. Now, if things go sideways, guess what? You've also just ruined a little bit of your credit too. So there's a, good and a bad. So you have to ask yourself which one's better for your particular situation. But most of the time, if you're trying to rebuild, you're not going to allow it to go bad or go sideways. But just know there's always that possibility as well. That's one of the beauties of seller financing is that it doesn't show up on your debt to income ratio for your regular everyday, expenses and credit needs that you have. Where if you had borrowed all that money, that's where your debt to income ratios start really going out the window. A bank's not going to look at an apartment complex at 100% income. They're going to look at a percentage of income, and then you've got all that vacancy and all that kind of other good stuff. And so it could be a negative, but you have to ask yourself if that's what you want or not. And if you're trying to rebuild, I'd probably report at least one, but I surely wouldn't do all of them. All of them would be, I think, too detrimental at the end of the day. Question number 5, another scenario question. Love scenario questions. Mr. Smith has a full-time job as an engineer and makes very good money. He has to travel 2 weeks out of every month with his job, and he's only able to buy, fix, flip about 2 houses per year. Mr. Smith knows he wants to quit his job and make it as a real estate investor full-time, but needs to first buy and flip at least 6 properties this year in order to match his salary and convince his wife to let him give up his full-time job and become an investor. What's the most effective way to somehow keep his full-time job while trying to maximize the amount of flips he buys and sells? So, this one's all over the board because I only have time to do 2 a year, but I need to do 6 a year to convince my wife. Well, here's the deal. If it takes much convincing of the wife, you're not going to become a real estate investor, or you're going to become a divorcee first. Because let's face it, if you're married, if you're in a relationship and you want to do something, they better want to do it too. They better be really full on board, because if they're not, it's not going to be fun. So I always say that, and I hate saying it like this, but if you have an obstacle like this, there's 3 things that can happen. I can change my wife's opinion to now have her opinion coincide with my opinion. I can allow my wife to change my opinion, so now I'm believing more in what she was believing in, or then thus not become a real estate investor. Or I can get a new wife. Those are the only three choices I have. I'm either going to change her mind, she's going to change my mind, I'm going to get another mind. But in this case, let's look at this question a little bit harder. He only has enough time to do 2 flips. Well, let's face it, people. How many hours does it take to do 2 flips? Oh my goodness gracious. What do we got? Last one I did. I think since I didn't do anything on it, it didn't take me any time at all. So, I'm a big believer in the Michael Gerber E-Myth system where you get other people to do really good stuff for you so you don't have to do any of the hard work or the easy work or the fun work. So I don't need any of those weeks. But if I'm going to go out there and actually knock on a door and do my CMAs and do all that kind of stuff, maybe 10 hours a deal by the time I research it, see it, open up escrow, buy it, sell it, put the check in the bank, maybe. That's a long time. So if I can't, in a year, find 60 hours, a week and a half, especially when I don't have to work weekends, sellers, people are actually alive on weekends, so we can actually see them on weekends, except, although that's not part of my business model because I don't want to work weekends. But if I had to, I would. I'm not lazy kind of stuff. If you have a day job, you got to put the hours in whenever you can put the hours in. And be, understandable about that. So maybe what you have to do is focus on an area in a different time zone that's available to you where on your off hours, it's their real hours. So maybe you have to get up a little bit earlier and market to a place, with a 3-hour time zone different and figure out how to do it. Maybe you have to hire a VA who's going to do some of the paperwork that you can't do. Maybe you got to do all kinds of stuff. Maybe instead of going to dinner, you'll go buy a house or you try to buy a house. Maybe instead of watching Super Bowl, you go try to buy a house. Maybe instead of whatever it is, you go do it. If you want to do it bad enough, most people who want to do something bad enough figure out a way to do it. So you just got to figure out a way to do it. The first thing you have to do is make sure your wife's on board. Because if she's not on board, you only have 3 choices. And I can tell you, an investor who doesn't have their wife or significant other on board, they won't be an investor long or won't be married long. And hate to be truthful about that, but that's how it is. It's been fun. These are good questions. Remember, we could have a really good podcast at Podcast 50. I'm sure 49 is going to be great too. I appreciate everybody listening. I really appreciate some of the good things that you guys are saying. Some of the emails that I'm getting, some of the nice little things. I appreciate that. We work hard here to help you guys. If you have a question you want to have answered, just send it to support@bsffacademy.com, and we will do our darndest to ask it and answer it. I absolutely know the answers aren't always going to be what you want to hear, but I don't think for a moment anybody wants me to lie to them and just blow smoke. I'm going to try to give you as honest an answer as it relates to me and my past and what my belief system is. And if I frustrate anybody, I apologize for that in advance, but I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to be me. And I appreciate you guys again. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show. Get more info and stay in touch at michaelquarles.com.